Okay, I believe we are live. Hi there, I'm Geri White from Hudson Valley Physical Therapy, and it's Myth-Busting Mondays. And this is
Zazu Geri, pelvic health and orthopedic physical therapist. Just double checking that we are actually live, and it does look like we're live. Yeah, so we're here to do Myth Busting Mondays, and today is constipation, and we all get constipated at one point or another. Constipation is one of those things that it happens to us at some point. There's a lot of correlation between like our diet and hydration and constipation. So if you've ever been dehydrated, you've probably been constipated. Or if you've ever gone on a plane or a long car ride, like you've probably been constipated.
right.
So it's good to know just kind of like some basics of constipation, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly.
So just as a reminder, the information provided is not meant to be a substitute for medical evaluation or treatment. This content is meant for educational purposes only. If you do have a question about your specific situation, please feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for, and we'd be very happy to help you.
Right. Okay, so the first myth we're going to bust around constipation is that you are constipated if you don't poop every day. And that is not true. It really all depends on your own specific pattern of bowel movements. But honestly, you can go once a day for every day, or you can go once every couple of days. Actually, you can go a couple of times a day to once every 3 days. That's normal in terms of bowel movement. So if you feel like you need to go every day, that's not necessarily true. It really depends on where you're at with your bowel function and your own bowel movement pattern. So say you are an everyday pooper and all of a sudden you stop pooping or stop having the urge to poop in 2 or 3 days, then that could be a constipation issue for you. Again, always go back to what your specific baseline is for bowel function. And then if there's a change in that in terms of lessening or decreased amount of bowel movements, then that might be a constipation episode for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's a large range,
yeah.
You know, what you could be normal in. But I do think that it's a big misconception that I hear is like, if you don't poop every day, then you're automatically constipated. And,
Right.
you know, there are people who poop every other day or every, 2 days, and they don't feel any discomfort or any issues. And so that might be like they're normal for their body. But right, if you're not pooping at least on, that third or fourth day, then we've got some issues.
Right. Exactly.
And right, if you're pooping more than like 3 times every day, then we probably have some issues that you want to, get addressed one way or another. Awesome. So, right. So the next one is Kegels can't help with constipation. So that's a myth because there is something called the reverse Kegel. And so just for, a background, a Kegel is where you are. And if you look at this picture here, you see this is the anal canal and this is the vaginal canal and then the urethra up at the front. If you're a male, it would just be the anal canal and then the urethra coming out of the penis. So in this picture, right, a Kegel is basically you're trying to close all of the openings and squeeze and lift up almost like into the pelvis. So a reverse Kegel is the opposite. So where you are trying to kind of relax open all of the openings, and it is that lengthening of the pelvic floor versus the shortening of the pelvic floor, which is, again, the regular Kegel. So when you poop, you should just be able to relax your muscles enough to where, the contents of your bowels or of your bladder just naturally come out. And if you are having difficulty relaxing those openings, then that actually could be an issue that could cause some constipation issues. So it's important to be able to determine, hey, do you have full range of motion of your pelvic floor? As in, you can do a Kegel and you can do a reverse Kegel. Can you do a concentric shortening contraction, which is the Kegel, or an eccentric lengthening contraction, which is the reverse Kegel? And if you can't do the reverse Kegel, then it's very possible that that might be contributing to the issues pooping.
Right, exactly. Yep. Okay, good. The third myth is, if I have diarrhea, I can't be constipated. So you would think, right? But if you have an issue with constipation where you haven't gone for a couple of days out of your norm, so what happens is your bowel or stool is kind of blocked higher up in the colon. And what happens there is you could get some stool that's more liquid form come around where the bowel is stuck and give you what you might think is diarrhea, when actually it's more like almost like a mucousy type of fluid that's made its way around the bowel or the stool that's stuck up in the colon. So it might look like diarrhea for you, but if you haven't been going in a couple of days just beyond your normal pattern, it could be just the leakage of the fluid that's coming around the stuck bowel, coming out of your rectum, looking like diarrhea, but it's truly not a true, what we say, true diarrhea, where it is, sorry to be so graphic and so much TMI, but diarrhea is really more like that, the watery, mushy, kind of really soft stool. But with constipation, again, what happens is it's more like a mucus leakage that's coming around the stool that's stuck up in the colon or up higher up in the rectum. Anything to add?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, that's really important, that we clarify that, because I think, we see a good amount of people that are like, well, when I go fairly frequently, but it's always these really, really loose, stools. So I can't be constipated, but you can, because like Jerry said, that stool, the stool that gets basically so hard and compact and kind of just stuck in your, the sigmoid colon, which is kind of like the last part of the colon, it basically just keeps kind of like mounding up. And then, but if you're still eating and drinking, the system is still getting stuff pushed through. And so it just makes its way like around, the stool that's stuck there. And another thing that actually I don't even know if we have in here, but it just reminds me is, if that's happening, then it's also possible that you have enough stool that basically it just keeps kind of building up and building up and building up, and your rectum, the tissue, has to accommodate to the stool that's there. So then your rectum can go, from being maybe like that much in diameter to like, that big in diameter, and then when you do, and a sign of that is when you do finally go, it's really large diameter stools, and it's very painful. So, that's, like you can't get around talking about poop when you're talking about constipation. Exactly. So, it's one of those things that, like, I guess not everybody like looks at their poop, but it's good to check every once in a while, like, so that especially when things are okay, so that like what your baseline is. You're like, okay, that was normal. That's what a normal poop looks like. That way, when it's abnormal, when maybe you do have some pain or something does kind of feel wrong or feel different, you can then kind of look at your stool and be like, oh, that looks different, or no, that looks the same. So it might be something else.
Right. Exactly. Good.
Yeah. So the next page. Right. I think this is me.
Yeah, that's you.
So it's normal to have to push out your poop. So that is a myth. You should be able to basically sit on the toilet. You get an urge to poop. You then go to the toilet. We call that a call to stool. You then go to the toilet, you sit down, and it just comes out. You know, it's like clockwork, right? Like you don't have to think about it. It just happens, right? It's an automatic process. If you are having to like give a little extra oomph to get it out, then that could be a sign that you're constipated, right? So stool form itself can affect basically what you have to do to try to get it out. So if, you know, it's like a firm but soft stool, right? That should just kind of naturally come out, and that should form, you know, on its own, you know, coming out through your rectum. But if it's a hard stool that's big, then sometimes you do need to give it a little bit of an extra push. But that's not something that you should be having to do as your baseline. If that's your baseline, we got to figure out what's going on. And a lot of the times, if you have constipation, going back to the basics of, are you drinking enough water? Are you eating enough fiber? And actually, I don't even think we have fiber in here either, but let's talk about fiber. Are you having enough fiber? Which for most women is like 25 to 30 grams a day. That's a day.
That's a lot.
right. But if you're strategic, you know, like 1 cup of raspberries is about 8 grams of fiber. So you're like a third, you know, you're almost more than halfway there, or a third of the way there, depending on, you know, 25 to 30. So if you're just like strategic about what you're eating, you know, that could be really helpful for you, you know, if you are finding yourself in a constipated moment. And then drinking enough water. So there's a lot of different recommendations for drinking water. What I usually like is drinking, you know, depending on your activity level, if just as a baseline, half your body weight in fluid ounces. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you're drinking about 50 fluid ounces throughout the day. Increase that if you are exercising, increase that if you are breastfeeding, or increase that if you're requiring more water, you know, for whatever reason. If you have a medical condition or something like that. But so those are kind of 2 go-tos, fiber and water. And then the third one is movement. Are you moving? Because if you're sitting all day, then that's another, you know, constipating factor. So trying to get up and move, you know, as much as you can will help move everything through.
Right.
Anything else to add to that?
No, I think that's it. Again, we could do another whole talk on nutrition with constipation. So, but yeah, those are the key points. And also just know, if you are out of your routine, especially with like traveling, although not many people are traveling these days, just know that it's expected actually, that you might have a little constipation. So that's when you might have to up your movement, especially if you're traveling or out of your routine, and increasing your fiber intake and definitely your water. So just an FYI with that. Okay, so the next myth is there is not a specific way to sit on the toilet to help you poop. There actually is. So there's a couple of things. If you find that you are having to poop, or not, or having to push or strain in order for yourself to get your bowels and stool out, then you might need to look at the way you're sitting on the toilet. Because as Zazu said, you have the urge, you sit on the toilet, you should just go. So the photo here that we have on the bottom right of our PowerPoint is the posture that you should take in order to help you poop. So that this posture actually helps you avoid or minimize the amount of pushing and straining that you're doing. And if you can see on this illustration here, the knees are higher than the hips. And what this does is anatomically, it increases what we call the anorectal angle. There's actually such a thing. And so the anorectal angle is the angle that your stool has to go through in order for it to come out of your anus. So if that right there, yes, exactly. Thanks, Zazu, that she's pointing to there. So with this stool position, with this posture, with the knees higher than the hips, the angle increases. So there's not a big bend for the stool to come through. It kind of, if the stool form is good, meaning a soft banana, consistency, your ability to push should be really minimal in this position. And what she has on her feet is a stool that's about 9 inches high. And that's going to give you that height that's the most ideal to open up that angle and get you that posture where your knees are higher than your hips. So there is a product out there, and probably a lot of you already know, it's called the Squatty Potty. That is, you can buy anywhere at this point, 9 inches high, and also positions your feet so your feet are apart. Okay, and then your knees are apart. And that's another component of it. So if you are pooping with your knees together and you're pushing, you're just really adding into closing everything up. So keeping everything open with your knees apart, your feet apart, and then that stool, and also just leaning a little bit forward gets that angle in the most optimal position in order for your stool to really come out without you having to push or strain.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay.
And I'll usually tell people too, like if they don't want to go buy a specific, you know, Squatty Potty or whatever, if you have like, you know, a small stool, like a kitchen stool, or like if you have kids, like one of the stools that they use to, you know, get up to the bathroom sink level. If you've got some books, you can stack them. Get creative, but basically, right, this is the position you want to be in. Some people, depending on the height of the little waste bin, I've had some people use that as well.
That's true.
So just get creative. And then lastly, we have rubbing your tummy doesn't help with constipation. So I feel like probably most of us at some point in our lives, maybe when we were younger is like the last time we did, but whenever our, you know, tummy's upset or we've got like our bowels are not feeling great, we just kind of tend to just kind of put pressure on our tummy and even almost like rub your tummy, just naturally. It feels good. It makes things generally just feel better, you know, or less bad. And that's certainly, you know, that light kind of rubbing is more of like a, you know, gentle, light touch massage that's more kind of neurologically driven and trying to get everything to calm down a little bit in that area. But you can actually perform a self abdominal or a self colonic massage. So just like this picture down here so this is the large intestine. And so it comes around like this, and then it ends here. And again, that sigmoid colon, which is kind of like an S with that angle, and then down into the rectum. And then this is the rectum here. So if you're having, you know, some trouble with constipation, if you're having just tummy trouble in general, this is generally a good idea. And so you can do this a few different ways. So again, the way that the stool goes through your system is it goes from your small intestine into your large intestine here at this junction. Then it travels up, then it travels across your body, then it travels back down, and then around down into the rectum. So you can do this type of massage a couple different ways. The way that I usually teach it is to try to clear, you know, what's ahead before you try bringing in more stool into the area. And so you basically do these little small circular movements with, you know, the pads of your fingers all along basically the left side of your abdomen and kind of down towards the rectum. So you're trying to almost like clear this area, see if you can move the stool that's closest to the end and see if you can pass that before you start trying to move more stool into that area, so that, you know, the likelihood of backing yourself up even more doesn't happen. So you start there, then you go across and then down, and then you start from the beginning of the large intestine. So up, across, and then down. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to literally just go, you know, start from the beginning and go towards the end. So certainly it kind of just depends on what you find works better for you and probably how constipated you actually are. Because if you're super, super constipated, you probably want to start at the end. If maybe it's just been like a day or two or you're off, maybe just do general and then go, you know, along the line of the colon. and that should be able to help you to kind of increase the stool kind of going through the system, and then your ability to hopefully pass the stool. And also just, you know, hands-on touch into that area does tend to kind of help calm things down and feel things make things feel a little bit better. Just remember, this is not meant to be like painful or uncomfortable. It's meant to really be more of a functional type of massage where you're actually trying to kind of move stool through your system, but it shouldn't feel painful. If it feels painful, then you should consult with either your physician or, you know, your pelvic health therapist, or you could always reach out to one of us. So yeah, any extras on that one?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, just making sure that right, there's no pain elicited. It's really softening the area to allow the stool to move through comfortably. So yeah.
So yeah, and we've got, you know, the picture here, you know, demonstrates that nicely, as well as the picture here for the toilet posture.
Right, exactly. All right, so I think that's it. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to us via email. If you wanted to review what we just presented, this video will be on our Facebook page forever. And also we do have a YouTube channel, Hudson Valley Physical Therapy, which will be this video, and all our Facebook lives will be on that channel as well. So take a look there for any of our other videos if you'd like. And that's it, I think, right? So yeah. And we will see you back here next Monday for Myth Busting Monday. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.